Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today, we have entered day 121 in the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. And right now, the big news that is kind of making the headlines, really a couple of things. One of the biggest things, though, right now is we keep seeing reports of the HIMARS, the high mobility long range rocket system that is being deployed and given to Ukrainian forces. And we keep also hearing in tandem with the HIMARS deliveries about the equivalency of a new Lend lease. And that directly correlates, obviously, between the current conflict and what the United States and some of the NATO partners are handing over to Ukrainian forces, and that of what was handed over during World War II to allied nations by the United States. So, look, you cannot even compare what was handed over during World War II to what the United States is handing over right now. The United States is handing over far, far less and types of equipment than what was handed over during World War II. So even call it a Lend Lease or something even within that realm is really ridiculous. And they're also talking about, meaning the mainstream media, is talking about these HIMARS and it's going to turn the tide, and that's kind of the perception that is being given by Western media, that these HIMARS systems are going to turn the tide and drive the Russian forces back. And unfortunately for Ukrainian forces, it's simply not the case. Right now, total deliveries of HIMARS, right now, we know that 4 systems are in the process of being or have been delivered, with an additional possibility of 4 more, which I believe was just approved. Additionally, we've seen Germany hand over or going to hand over 3, and the United Kingdom 3 as well. So, again, not a lot of systems. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 total HIMARS being delivered to Ukrainian forces is not going to change the dynamics that we are seeing on the ground right now. It's just not going to happen. You would have to see the delivery of 100 HIMARS in addition to other systems as well, and mass deliveries of other systems as well to really kind of change the dynamic on the ground, as I talked about in previous episodes. Will the HIMARS cause issue for Russian forces? Yeah, absolutely. And it also depends on the types of ammunition that is being sent along with these HIMARS. So the HIMARS has the capability to hit targets with the smaller rocket systems that the system traditionally uses, out to dozens of miles. There is also the possibility that the United States could deliver the ATACMS, which is a single ballistic missile type of precision guided weapon system missile that could also be included, that could hit targets well over 100 miles. Now, at this point, we don't know if that has occurred in terms of the sending the ATACMS. We believe at this point it's mainly the smaller systems, the smaller missiles that have been delivered with less range, much less range, actually. Now, it is possible that through clandestine activity, we could have seen the deployment of HIMARS launching ATACMS previous in the conflict, and I've talked about that, but again, they're probably not being used to the extent that would really change what is happening on the ground. Another interesting weapon system that we understand is being delivered to Ukrainian forces that isn't getting a lot of airtime. It's not getting a lot of publicity, but it is a very effective system that, while again, depending on the numbers delivered, could really cause issue for Russian forces. And that is the Advanced Precision Kill Weapon System. And what they do is they basically take a 70 millimeter old, I believe it's a 2.75 Hydra rocket, and they put a laser seeker on it, and it turns this 70 millimeter free flight rocket that is traditionally launched from helicopter gunships into a very precise weapon system that, instead of firing dozens of rockets at one target and maybe you hit it, you're able to fire one of these 70 millimeter rockets, and they will absolutely, if they hit a armored personnel carrier, a BMP, 1, 2, or 3, a BTR, will have a devastating, catastrophic kill upon that vehicle. Or any heavy artillery system that they are able to target. Now, the question is how these 70 millimeter advanced precision kill weapon systems are going to be deployed. It's unlikely that they will be deployed via helicopters in sufficient number by the Ukrainians that would make it would really help Ukrainian forces, because the Ukrainians are really not flying a lot of air support missions in terms of using helicopter gunships and fixed air assets, tactical air assets as well. But more likely, we would probably see these rockets being fired from ground stations with a individual soldier more towards the front line, using a laser designator against targets, much like you would use a 152 or 155 millimeter precision guided artillery piece like the Excalibur. So very interesting to see that system deployed and how it will be deployed. We know that the Brimstone has been deployed as well, a very advanced weapon system, again, but probably not delivered in the numbers that is really going to make a difference for Ukrainian forces. So I would say temper your expectations regarding the delivery of HIMARS and some of these other systems. We've sent probably just over between 100 and 150, both the United States and allied nations, of varying systems in regards to 155 millimeter systems. The problem is maintaining those systems in the field and having them not be destroyed by Russian forces, and more importantly, not having their ammunition destroyed by Russian forces. That's kind of what we're seeing right now on the ground taking place. The Russians are becoming very proficient in going after these deliverable weapon systems in Ukraine, and more specifically, they're having a great deal of success at targeting the ammunition depots and the way you feed these systems. And if these systems don't have ammunition, well, how do you use them? They make for maybe a good PR piece, fire 1 or 2 rounds, but ultimately it's not going to change the dynamic on the ground. So what are we seeing continuing on the ground within the context of the conflict? And we continue to see reports, especially in the comment section and other YouTube videos and other content providers, indicate that, well, the Russians aren't really taking territory. There hasn't been a major seizure of large amounts of territory since the start of the conflict. And indeed, we saw in the initial stages of the conflict, the Russians make rapid advances, seizing control of large areas, while again, very aggressive offensive operation designed to seize control of Kiev. The end game for that operation was failure. Now, obviously, we've seen the tactics and strategy of Russian forces change, and they are now seeing much more success in terms of what exactly they're trying to do. So right now, it's not so much about the seizure of territory by Russian forces. Obviously, the Russians are attempting to take territory, not the amounts of territory that were seized earlier in the campaign versus what we're trying to see now. That right now is not really the mission of Russian forces. The mission for Russian forces right now is simply the destruction of the Ukrainian military. And that's what we're seeing on the ground right now take place. First and foremost, the main strategy for Russian forces is targeting and destroying Ukraine's ability to field an organized fighting force. And unfortunately for Ukrainian forces, the Russian strategy is proceeding, and the Ukrainians are taking horrendous casualties in this changed operation by Russian forces. Eventually, if you destroy the enemy army, and the enemy army is capitulating or has lost the will to fight, then eventually the seizure of that territory will come. And that's kind of what we're seeing right now with in terms of the Russian mainline strategy. And the main effort of that strategy, obviously, right now is in the east of the Donbass, the Sloviansk, Severodonetsk, Bakhmut triangle, which in all probability will become the Sloviansk-Kramatorsk frontal area of operations as this pocket continues to tighten on Ukrainian forces. And I'm going to go back from the 24th, where you, the viewer, can kind of see what we're seeing in terms of the Russian strategy. And I'm continuing to do this day by day, where you, the viewer, can see exactly what Russian forces are trying to do. And right now it appears that Ukrainian forces have now started to withdraw, especially from Severodonetsk. And additionally, the several Ukrainian brigades that are caught in this salient, or this pocket, this tighter and tighter closing pocket, are at great risk of being destroyed by Russian forces, and that is their intent. Again, that intent is to destroy the Ukrainian field army, and that's kind of what we're seeing. So I'm going to fast forward from June 21st, 2022 to today, where we're currently at. So you can see exactly what is happening on the ground. And again, tighter and tighter and tighter. The lead-in offensive is coming out of Popasna, and that operation continues. In all likelihood, we're now seeing the start of a mass withdrawal of Ukrainian forces from Severodonetsk. In all likelihood, they're going to have to pull back from Lysychansk as well to more defendable lines. Again, as I talked about yesterday, probably just to the east of the main M3 highway. And I would imagine that right now Ukrainian forces are starting to fortify these towns just across from the M3 highway in hopes that they are able to stifle this Russian advance. But at the same time, please understand that Russian forces are going after the Ukrainian military as a whole in this area, and it's not so much going after a territory per se, but going after the Ukrainian army, the Ukrainian field army in the field at this point. And that's pretty much it. We have seen some recent limited offensive operations by Ukrainian forces, both around Mykolaiv and kind of to the southeast of Zaporizhia as well. And what we'll do is we'll kind of go back and let you kind of see exactly what has happened. You know, not a lot, but if you look in this area to the north of Mariupol, you can see that the Ukrainians have pushed a little bit. Again, these are very small efforts, and they don't do a lot other than possibly cause the Russians to redeploy some assets or launch tactical air assets to meet Ukrainian forces. But this is not by any means a concerted offensive to make a drive on Mariupol at this point. And the same goes within the area just to the northwest of Kherson. Again, go back and you can see that bulge that was originally created, and then the Russians pushed them back. But that's it in terms of territorial changes. But right now we continue to watch, obviously, what's happening here in the east. At the same time, we can continue to expect to see continued Russian targeting of those Western systems that are being brought in to the country. And obviously, the Russians are going after those systems with long-range cruise missiles. And if they make it to the actual front line, obviously, artillery systems and fixed-wing tactical aircraft, and of course multiple launch rocket systems as well that the Russians employ in the current war. But that is pretty much it for today in terms of what we're seeing on the ground. We'll continue to provide coverage and reports of what is happening. Again, thanks for joining us. More to come.